Hi there. This is your book writing and publishing coach, Donna Kozik. And this is my once in a while series of what makes it good. And today I'm going to go over an article from Vanity Fair called Requiem for a Dream and to kind of tell you, highlight a few paragraphs and describe what makes it good writing. First of all, just a really good article that we have here with also good photos and also a little surprise bonus that I really liked as well. And it is from Vanity Fair. And the kind of executive summary of this piece, Requiem for a Dream, is Keith McNally has opened many restaurants in New York City and closed them amid COVID. None has pained him quite like Balthazar. Oh gosh, I practiced and everything. Balthazar writes the restaurateur. So this is actually written in first person from Keith McNally, the person who owns the restaurant. Then there's just this stunning photo here taken back in the heydays. I don't know if you're like me, but sometimes when I see photos even of large crowds or, on TV, I get a little nervous. But, this was at a Chanel dinner and doesn't say when it was, but obviously pre-pandemic. Then here's a little bonus surprise. There's actually an audio version of this article right here embedded in the article that you can listen to it in a nice, it's like a British accent of somebody who read the piece. And that's where I listened to it to get the pronunciation. Of Balthazar. And anyway, so you can listen to it instead of reading it if you want. In fact, I recommend that you do. I recommend that you read it and then listen to it because when you're reading it, you might have a certain rhythm in your mind, in your head that you're listening to the author. And then also some of that can be highlighted in a different way when you listen to the audio. All right, so the audio is almost 14 minutes. Obviously, I'm not going to go through the entire article here, but I'm going to highlight a few of the reasons that it is good. So let's just kind of start with the lead. 6 other restaurants of mine have shut their doors due to the pandemic, but none affected me as much as Balthazar's closing. The idea of a large, bustling restaurant such as Balthazar struggling for life is like watching an experienced swimmer drowning. I can't stomach it and prefer to remember my restaurant as it was when it opened 23 years ago. All right, the beautiful, beautiful metaphor right here that says so much is that second sentence. The idea of a large, bustling restaurant such as Balthazar struggling for life is like watching an experienced swimmer drowning. Says so much right there. Again, this photo, it's referenced in the piece about how the restaurant came about, and this is a photo of the bar area. Anyway, and these columns here on the side play a role. So you might, come back and study this photo a little bit more, or some other ones. All right. Just one more paragraph here, just kind of set the tone. I first saw the Balthazar space early one Sunday morning in 1995. It was a rundown leather warehouse called Adar Leather. At the time, I was building a vodka bar 2 blocks away and had passed this worn out storefront every day for 9 months without noticing it. That changed when I spotted a handwritten for rent sign on its shabby door. Again, setting the tone here. One thing I always tell my authors is to put time elements last in a sentence, and that's what makes this effective here. He doesn't say, "Oh, one early Sunday morning in 1995, I first saw the Balthazar space." He puts what's most important at the front of the sentence, and time elements are usually the least important part. So that's good that it came at the end of the sentence. So that's what makes it good. And then describing it's a leather warehouse. And then also we're starting to get the idea that this isn't like a, someone who's just getting involved in the bar business or the restaurant business. He said, at the time I was building a vodka bar 2 blocks away. So it's like, okay, this guy, he's established in the business. And also, but knowing that it was 1995 is helpful as well. So then he describes the space. Ending this paragraph here, I immediately saw its vast potential as a restaurant, and I jotted down the phone number into my small filofax, right? Perfect, specific thing, something that sets again the time and the space and where we are. He didn't have an iPhone to put that in, or didn't take a picture of it, but instead he jotted the number down in his Filofax. And okay, and then I just love this paragraph. The next day, I called the landlord, and a month later, I signed a 15-year lease. As with all of my restaurants, my eagerness for the space died the second I signed the lease. Overnight, its location, 1 block from Soho, felt like another borough, and the number of squealing rats on Crosby Street seemed to increase dramatically, or I'm sorry, drastically the day after I signed for the space. Overall, it now felt like a god awful location. I love this because it's a peek into somebody who is just putting it out on the line. Now we know the end of the story, that it is or was a successful restaurant, but the fact is, who hasn't like made a decision and then almost all of a sudden have these types of regrets? And he puts this out here, and I love it because it gives us a peek, and also his vulnerability, but also just kind of like what it takes to do something big like this, like open one of these huge restaurants. And I just love it. The personality comes through. So when you're doing writing, look for ways that you can be vulnerable or say these kinds of things. Not quite tongue in cheek, but again, like looking back, is there something that you can point out that the reader can kind of laugh at or relate to, uh, that doesn't hurt the end of the story, right? It's not like he's undermining his expertise or the success of this restaurant, but he's just kind of saying in the beginning, man, I don't know. So love that. Again, some great photos in here. All right, so a little bit more about him, about how the restaurant, the idea came from this photo that he found in a shop in Paris. Here are some very like here's what I call kind of like a facty paragraph, when construction started, the cost, the size, and all of that. And I like this is his technique as a writer, where he kind of sets that up here in the first part of the paragraph, and then his personality comes in again at the end. Talk about breaking rules, and then he says something that kind of comes out of left field when you're talking about building a building that you're renovating. He says, anyway, I believe that restaurants, like plays and films, work best when they create their own world, and being exposed to the outside world while dining is like hearing the doorbell during sex. So you get people's attention when you use that 3-letter word at the end. But more so, what I want to say here is that, again, it's his personality, it's his idea. You can tell this guy is comfortable in his skin, that he's successful and everything. And also, he is just like stating things as he sees them, and they might go against the grain of what others say. Like others might say, as he says here, big open windows and stuff. He's like, no, I want to create a private space where the outside world doesn't intrude. So giving his philosophies and stuff here too. All right, let me see here. I read this about a week ago, so I'm just refamiliarizing myself with it, but I definitely bookmarked it for what makes it good, because it is just such a wonderful piece. It's interesting too. I like pieces like this where it introduces me to a world that I have no idea about. I watch Top Chef and Sugar Rush, that kind of thing. But this is, well, Top Chefs will be a little bit closer, but this is kind of an inside peek at that industry. It's very, very cool. Even right here, the top of this paragraph, sorry, Ian also acted as general contractor. We're getting another peek into, like, he's not painting himself as a Superman. And this is something that you want to do in your writing. You don't want to patronize or act like you're above your reader. You want to let them know, hey, I made some mistakes too along the way. So here he talks about how they never use architect's plan. They just kind of wrote things on napkins, bits of paper. And then he says, whatever I might have saved on architect's fees, I spent more on fixing my endless mistakes. All right. So just again, right there. Okay, so again, these two statues on the end of the bar were it's like the main part of the restaurant. You can go back and read this part. I'll put a link, of course, to this around here somewhere. All right. Here's a little bit of, insider technique. Another thing that you can do, where this person has a sentence and the reader doesn't quite understand it, but you can kind of figure out what it means in context. So was talking to a colleague of his, and the colleague says, "You're going to do 200 covers at lunch, but you'll struggle at dinner because no one goes there at night." He prophesized. And so 200 covers, I don't know what that means, but then like figure, I think it's like 200 tickets or something like that. And and so that's that using that insider language again just adds I love that in this piece because like it makes me feel like I'm in the know, and I'm sitting around kind of listening to him tell this story. And when you're writing a piece in first person like this, that's again the attitude that you're looking at. You want to have the idea that we are sitting at the bar and he's telling this story. All right. This is the photo that inspired him to open the restaurant. Here he's talking about the chefs, which again is just interesting. And they talk about specific, you can see here the pull quote. The only thing the chefs and I disagreed on was whether to put a hamburger on the menu. And that's that kind of specific information that makes this piece sing. He talks about a little bit why that was happening. I guess it might have been popular in the 90s or something. Okay. Here again, it's just kind of like these regrets. The night before we opened, I took a final look at Balthazar and sank into a depression. Oh gosh, and like when you go to these restaurants and theaters and stuff like that in New York, you just think it's like, wow, kings and queens built these things. Like they didn't have any doubts in themselves at all. And here is this guy just, describing his own experience. Well, I think as artists, I want to read this paragraph too, because as artists, writers, as a writer, you're an artist as well, creative and stuff. I think it speaks to something that we all experience. He says, the night before we opened, I took a final look at Balthazar and sank into a depression. The dining room looked fucking terrible and hadn't come out the way I imagined it. It had been the same with the films I directed. I've always found it impossible to recreate something without making such serious compromises that the outcome falls far short of my original idea. All right, that last sentence, amazing. Again, it's a deeper look. It's a philosophical statement. Now, you can't start the piece with that. It has to be embedded down below. So we get the flavor, we get the feel of things. And then we have this just wonderful sentence, again, showing this vulnerability that he has, this look inside. And remember, this is a piece because the restaurant has closed because of COVID. So it's kind of it's a memory piece. It's almost like a funeral piece for this. So there is definitely some sadness here. And he's talking, also about the hard times. But who hasn't had some idea or some vision? And then, God willing, you bring it to fruition. And it's like, it's not as rich as I saw it in my mind. It's not quite there. And so, he has that too. He's just like us. All right. Then of course the restaurant was a great success when it first opened. That leads to its own problems when can be too successful because then the chefs get mad and everything. Here's a nice throwback. Towards the end of a 900 cover brunch, all right? So that guy up above, that colleague said 200 cover lunch. He had a 900 cover brunch. And so it's like, okay, we know that this is doing bigger than he originally thought, or anybody was thinking. I don't know if he talks in here about what his covers are for oh dinner, because that's what the guy was kind of ragging on him for. But here it does say it's 180 seats were full for breakfast, lunch, and dinner right from the start. So then it's like throws that information right in our face, noticing, or telling us this, noticing it's not too far from where that guy said that. So then we remember that, and the number kind of sticks in our head, 200 at lunch. And so then when we find out, full for breakfast, dinner, lunch, and all that, it's like, okay, that's the contrast to what was set up above. I just love these pictures. These Vanity Fair pieces are, I mean, just amazing. All right. They are talking about this. They're talking about, customers, and again, the chefs and everything like that, mentioning some of the other partnerships. So, again, this guy isn't new to the industry, talking about his other endeavors here. Here's a sentence, or a thought that's really stuck with me. As I mentioned, I read this piece about 10 days ago, a week ago, and I've thought about this sentence a couple of times since, or this idea. He says, over the years, I've noticed one unvarying trait in my customers. If offered a free drink once every 20 visits, they love the restaurant. But if offered a free drink 19 visits in a row, but not on the 20th visit, they're pissed off and resent the restaurant. I've since realized this holds true outside of restaurants. I think that's a great insight into business right there. Okay. Okay, here's a great little story. I'm getting towards the end here. A great little story too. I'm always encouraging my authors to include some facts, some inspiration, some stories, and some how-to in their pieces. This as a personal memoir, this is more story. It's story heavy, but it still definitely has its facts. It has a little bit of how to. I mean, it's not like, any of us are going to go open a restaurant, but still we kind of have some of the basics now. And then also just the facts, stats. Anyway, it's all in here somehow. This is a great story though. And this paragraph here is probably one of the longer paragraphs in the piece, but still it's not that long. So let me read this. A month after the opening, I was walking through Soho feeling quite proud of Balthazar's success. So it's coming. It's like, some pride goeth before a fall, right? When I overheard two women talking disparagingly about its food. Crushed. Great descriptive there. I uncharacteristically introduced myself and startled the two women by offering them a free dinner if they would agree to give Balthazar a second chance. They returned a week later and ordered the full meal, including wine and dessert, after they had wiped their plates clean. Great description right then. Okay, we now know they ate everything. I don't know how you pronounce that word. Something I approached their table. I don't know if he uses a few more adverbs here than I would recommend. I approached their table, preparing to luxuriate in their compliments, when the shorter of the two piped up, "Thank you for dinner, Mr. McNally, but to be honest, we don't like the food any more than the last time. If anything, less so." So it's also a nod to the joke that says two women are talking, and one says, "Oh, I don't like that," or "We don't like coming to this restaurant um, because the food's not good and the portions are so small." I don't tell it right, but it's kind of like a punchline of a joke, and that joke here is his own experience with it and stuff too. Also, just like, who doesn't want to try to make a convert, right? And he's like, "Hey, I own this restaurant. I'm going to save this. I'm going to get them talking great about my restaurant." So he swoops in, he gives them, 5-star service kind of thing, and still. And that's just, I mean, just the way it is sometimes with people. But again, he's just like us. He's trying to people please, has some health issues here. And I'll just read the that he describes. I will read again. I will read the I'm sorry, two more things real quick. Here is he has a quote from Dylan Thomas, Lyons poet. I think famous Irish poet, I want to say, rage, rage against the dying of the light. That's the inspiration. That quote maybe isn't, but that speaks to the reader who likes poetry, basically, and stuff like that. So again, see how there are different writing elements in here that are rich. Again, going to those facts and the how to and the inspiration, and that's a nod to the inspirational part. This guy is actually an amazing writer. Um, so I'd be interested to talk to him about how he composed this piece, if he had to do a lot of revisions, if it just kind of has always been told in his head in a certain way and he just, let it flow out. That'd be interesting. In any case, then he says that ends with a vaccine for COVID appears to be on the horizon. Trump has lost the election and Balthazar finally reopens in January. Oh, yay. So we get a happy ending to this, that the restaurant's going to reopen. The rage is over. Throwback to this. For now, the light shines again for now, right? Because who knows? If one thing this pandemic has taught us, we don't know. Look at this different type of writing here to end the piece. Short sentences, especially the last three. The rage is over. For now, the light shines again for now. Powerful, powerful. Ending there, so it's the end. I like that. There's an AP Associated Press piece that I might do for this series, and you'll be able to instantly tell the difference between Associated Press writing and a piece like this for Vanity Fair. All right, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found it helpful and it will improve your own writing. That's my goal for this. My name's Donna Kozik. I'm the founder of MyBigBusinessCard.com, creator and leader of the original Write a Book in a Weekend program, and our sister programs, Done For You Publishing, Rising Stars, the Community Book Project. We have a lot of good stuff going on here at DK Inc. I hope you join us for a project sometime in the future. In the meantime, keep on reading, and I will see you in the bookstore.